All right. So welcome everybody to Business Talk After Hours. It's not that late, but we'll pretend like it's after hours. I'm Mitch Mike. I'm a business attorney in New Jersey, specifically Clark, New Jersey. And I work with small business owners and entrepreneurs and family-owned businesses. And I'm also the host of the Accidental Entrepreneur podcast, which you can get on all the directories. And before we introduce our guest, I am happy to say that I was on her video podcast recently, The Inspired Attorney, but she'll tell us all about it. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself? Unfortunately, Trevor and Jeff can't join us today, but so we get Sharon all to ourselves. So Mike, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, welcome everyone. Michael Manella, wealth advisor with Merrill Lynch. Part of what I do is financial planning and help clients through prepare for big transitions, financial transitions in their life, and help them every step of the way. Welcome.
Okay. And Sharon, thanks for joining us. I guess you're really Mike's friend, right? And then he introduced us to you and all that kind of stuff. So why don't you introduce yourself for the video, and then we'll get into all the stuff we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. Well, I'm thankful to be here. Thank you guys for having me. My name is Sharon V. I am an attorney by trade who has transitioned to being a business and life strategist. What that means is I help my colleagues, particularly my colleagues, find their passion and also strategically pivot to maximize their overall profitability. It's really my passion to help people find their passion because I know what it's like to be miserable in your job and forget about your dreams. And we oftentimes need someone who can have a bird's eye view of everything that's going on and can help you see the things that you're not seeing. And as mentioned by Mitch, I am the Inspired Attorney. I have a video podcast, which is also being transitioned to audio. And Mitch was on my podcast. And also I have another one coming out called Let's Talk Finance, where
Very
Michael
good.
was also on it. So
nice.
Good stuff.
Covering different industries.
Yes, exactly.
So Sharon, I know we're going to talk about, professionals, and we talk about mindset and all the stuff that you do. What made you kind of transition out of practicing law to saying, okay, I know all these attorneys are miserable, I'm going to help them? Like, because that's true, by the way, we're all very miserable. So how did that happen? I'm curious.
So for a very long time, I thought that because I got the law degree, I needed to be an attorney. And it actually started when I was working at a law firm. I had to move back to the US and restart my legal career. It was basically that decision. Do I want to be an attorney or do I want to use my MBA? And I was going along and I kept looking for jobs that didn't really spark joy. I was creating resumes and writing cover letters for jobs, basically like pulling out all the things that I'm good at, but none of the jobs
They
will really
excite you.
that I know.
Yeah.
And so also in that process, like the company that I'd worked for quite some time, it's all attorneys doing contract work.
Yeah.
So my colleagues would come to me and I would help them. And also friends who have small businesses. And this is something that I love. And especially when they come to me afterwards and they say, man, you really helped me. What a great idea. Thank you for pushing me to do that or helping me see that perspective. And I was looking for legal jobs where I could use those skills and it just didn't exist.
Right.
So I hired a coach and basically made it happen.
Nice. And you were like, oh, I can do this and I can be happy doing it.
Yeah. But I'm reading a book called The Extraordinary Mind by Lakshmi. I'm going to totally mispronounce his name.
Another book. I have 3 books over the last 2 days. Extraordinary Mind.
Yeah, An Extraordinary Mind. It is amazing. He's the founder of Mind Valley, and it really talks about how a lot of people really go through their life where basically we think we need to go to college and we need to do that, and we kind of like grow in like this kind of way. But if you really
that is totally my life, by the way. Just wandered through, like, coming out of college. What are you going to do? I don't know. My grandmother always asked me to go to law school. I went to law school. Now I'm stuck practicing law and, whatever. It happens to a lot of us.
Same. But you know what the thing is that sometimes when we go the safe route, we are afraid to really feel the things that come up, the painful things that come up. And what I've realized is that everything, like basically me transitioning into this new career, which I'm building, I'm very excited about, is basically like turmoil. Like when I've had my valleys, when stuff wasn't going the way I wanted it to go, and where I recognized that I was miserable and I needed to make a change. But through those valleys, we get popped up to a high, and you always are higher than where you started. So you just kind of have to look at those valleys.
Growth.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do things. I mean, you don't have to become a flower child, move to Costa Rica and try and save the planet, right? But you can do things purposefully, which I never really realized when I was younger, in terms of making decisions in your life. It's not something you got to go the route that your parents are trying to push you to go. I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm not saying that. I think we all need a college degree. It's an exercise in thinking. And you have your MBA and your JD. But you don't have to, like you say, just because you graduated law school, just because you got an engineering degree, just because you did whatever does not mean you have to, with your MBA, go work for McKinsey. You don't have to. You don't have to practice law. You don't have to. You can use your knowledge and your degree and your expertise and your ability to think in a lot of stuff, but you just got to explore that, And it's not easy. I agree with you. It's not easy. I'm sorry, Mike.
And to ultimately follow your passion, right? Because that's what's going to, give you that, what you were just saying earlier, that gratification of what you're doing, right? You felt good about, hey, I was able to talk to these small business owners and I was able to make a difference, right? And that was just really gratifying. And that's really your passion shows, right? So I think it's like when you're really truly passionate about something, it's all over your face, right? It's just, and it's an infectious, right? So I think that's
you're
key,
definitely one of the happier people I know. And you live in Florida, so that helps the weather a little bit better.
The sun helps. But it's also about having the courage to do it, because not every day is, I have this.
It's not easy. I think that's a good point you made before. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not every day is going to be the best day you've ever had, but one of the things I will say that for a long time bothered me is when someone's like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I don't believe in bad days. I think it's really what you make out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the best day you've ever had, but
it's like your mindset, right?
Yeah, it is totally.
Yeah. I think it's funny or not funny. I think it's a good barometer to say, if I can like what I do on the worst days, that's like a good watermark, because there will be bad days. Like you said, I'm having a bad day. Sometimes you just got to climb off the mountain and go home. Like tomorrow, the sun will come up. You just need to take a breather. Everybody's throwing everything at you. And just, and it does. And things have a way of working out. But, we always react and we do this and we do that. I try not to react to clients too quickly, because usually 90% of their problems go away. I think we talked about that when I was in your video podcast.
It's so true though, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we had set off the mic that we were going to talk about, like the things you do about, the marketing and business development for not just professionals, because you work with a lot of different people, but you also want to get in a mindset, which I think is really important. So I'll let you kind of guide the conversation.
Yeah. And I think too, is that, to that point also, Mitch, is as well, is that, within the past 7 months, a big game changer for everybody, especially professionals. And, the service that you provide, at this point in time, I mean, it's valuable in any environment, but especially now, right? So I think maybe just kind of talking through,
because people are kind of reevaluating, right?
How have they, what obstacles they face? Obviously, we all face these obstacles, but how are they able to overcome it, right? And get to a point where they can continue to move forward their business, provide guidance, advice, whatever their actual business is, but be able to adapt to this normal now,
We need your help, Sharon. That's what we're saying. We need your help and guidance.
So basically, one of the things that I do with my clients is I challenge them to dream. And it's partially, I use my superpowers, which, my inherent gifts, and also the knowledge that I have, that I've accumulated in my life, but also through the knowledge that I've accumulated through my valleys. And what I realized is, and what most people don't know, is that when I was in my valley, I was like, damn, I don't know if I really want to be an attorney. And I was like, and I love photography, nature photography. And I was like, I'm going to start a business for my nature photography. It's really about starting to open your mind to saying, I like to do this, I don't like to do this, and actually taking the time for yourself to work on this stuff, because
test the waters a little bit.
Yeah. So even like in terms of taking the time to write this stuff down, in terms of like writing down your dreams, like what feels good, like what do you want to do, and actually taking that, because a lot of the time we're like, oh, I don't have the time to do this. But then at the end of the day, what happens if you don't take that hour once a week to reflect? Because that reflection time gets you clear on, because just because you've opened that mind, you've activated your reticular activating system to start attracting things that you like, and you open your mind to other things, and new opportunities and new concepts come your way, or where you say to yourself, oh, I really like this, let me explore that path. And just really just opening yourself to that, because generally what we're good at, we like doing, and what we're not good at, we don't like doing. So it's a matter of exploring those different things, and then also seeing what's holding us back. Because when you are going through this dream exercise, and we all do it, sometimes we say, oh, I like in a dream that a lot of people have, I want to be a millionaire. And then someone says, well, all these other things are coming into my life. Or someone says to themselves, I want to be more positive. And they're like, well, positivity is bullshit because I stepped in dog crap today, something
Right.
like that. So it's just kind of like really getting curious about the different things that are coming up.
Yeah. And I guess it's an exercise, or it's a learned skill, right? So if you're doing it more, you start looking at the world differently. You don't really, it's not dog crap. It's something else you just can deal with,
And it's I guess it's awareness, right? Awareness of your situation, awareness of your recent experience, and looking at it. Like you said, I focus all my time doing what I'm really good at. I'm not focusing on what I'm not good at. But however, if I get out of my comfort zone a little bit, that's really the way that I can now grow, right? And expand, because I'm focused all my time and energy over here, where if I focus a little bit of time over here on things that maybe I'm not good at, I'll get better at it, right? And I'll be able to kind of grow, in your situation. I think it's a great point, is just having that awareness, because I think we're all running, very, very fast. And it's like, you never have that pause. And if you don't have that pause, you can't be aware of, what you're kind of going through in your experience.
And the great thing is about the built time for reflection, it can be twofold, like having the time for yourself to really examine. So maybe things aren't working the way you want them to work. You really have that moment to say, okay, what's not working, what is working, or also having a family member, a friend, or someone that you can really bounce things off of, or even a coach or a therapist, or somebody who sees things from a different point of view, that can help you tweak your direction. Because it's just funny, because we all want things right away, and I'm the same. I'm a human being too. I want things to happen overnight, but when I gained a lot of weight when I lived in Germany, and one day I was 50 pounds heavier, and I don't know how it happened, but I know. And and I just didn't know how it happened. It just kind of crept up on me, but it's bit by bit. And so when one day I just decided I'm going to go for a run, not even thinking that I would get into the shape that I am now, but it was just the goal that I need to start chipping away at everything. And it just, one day you look back and you're like, wow, look what I did.
Yeah. You can't, what's that expression? You can't eat an elephant in a day.
Yeah.
Like we try to, there's some people I know that like jump in there. Oh, we're going to do this. And then they burn out.
No, exactly. And I think on that point too, Sharon, I think you bring up an excellent point a little earlier about writing things down, right? Having the dream, but writing it down. And it's a matter of saying, if you write it down, well, now it's like, now you can kind of back into it. What steps do I need to take? It's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but it will happen at some point in the future if I take these steps, and I think that's like the first step right there. And I think a lot of people, will in some cases give up, because they really don't, not that they don't have the direction, but they don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know where they're going.
I can't look back and say, oh, what did I say that day when I was talking to Mike? What was that idea I had? They got nowhere to go to. Yeah. Journaling, I think, is really important.
You definitely have to write down the downloads when they come, when you're in flow. But another funny thing about writing things down, and I know this also from personal experience, sometimes when I'm doing my goal setting, because I do it at the beginning of the week, month, and also in the year, I'm constantly setting new goals for myself. Sometimes I noticed that when there was something that I wanted, but I would be afraid to put it in writing, because then I had to commit myself to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
It makes it real. And then it brings up all the scary demons that are like hanging out in that closet, so to say.
Right. Just a thought, nobody knows about it, and they can just leave it in the back of your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's definitely an exercise. I also think that a lot of people, like Mike said, the consciousness of, doing things purposefully, not wandering through life, and realizing how you're talking to people and how you're interacting with people and what decisions you're making or not making, or are you really happy? I mean, people don't even take time to reflect on that stuff. And I think it's during coronavirus, especially. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to the legal profession. You can give us your opinion, but I see a lot of big partners at big firms saying, you know what, this is not worth it. I have clients, I can go work from a co-working space. You don't need the kind of support you used to need in the law. It's all virtual. You can get it, whatever. And they're just gonna, I think it's gonna hurt bigger firms where people are just like, I don't need to be part of suits.
I think that Corona has, while it's just peaks and valleys, right? So every bad has a good side. And I see, I've had my challenges there have been dark times for me, which have have been fertilizer for the most beautiful flowers, because these realizations that we're having this time, it's really kind of separated people in the sense that they're the people that say, oh, I want things to go back to the way they were, where it was comfortable, or where it was kind of like the same circle. And you have the people that are saying, well, life is, if you go back to Darwin, life is an evolution, and every challenge is part of your evolution. So I feel like we've really been so lucky that we've been able to grow years in a 6-month or 8-month time span. It's crazy, like what I know I've been able to accomplish. I know that a lot of people who have taken the time to really say to themselves, okay, I'm not happy in this job. Like apparently someone told me yesterday that like the number of businesses that have been started in this time is record. And something like that to me is really beautiful. People taking taking whatever happens and, so to say, making lemons out of lemonade, and just having the courage to go for it.
Well, some of them didn't know if they had a job to go back to. So they started thinking and exploring. And you're right. I mean, there's been a huge revolution in terms of what's happened in our economy. I mean, there's going to be some people that are left behind. There's going to be older people that are like, they didn't plan on learning technology, and now they're on Zoom.
Yeah. My mom, I taught her Zoom the other day, finally.
Yeah, there you go. Because if not, you're like trapped in could you imagine this happening 20 or 30 years ago? We had like regular phones, and this wouldn't work. Kids couldn't learn remotely. I mean, it wouldn't have worked. So that's ironic, but yeah.
I don't think it's ironic. And everyone can believe what they want, but I feel like life is always happening for us. And we got very, very lucky. It's not only luck. I mean, it happened the way it should have happened, It sounds, maybe somebody won't really agree with me, but this has been a tremendous opportunity for us to grow as a human race, and also see the commonalities that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it brings a lot of us together. We can put all the hatred aside and all the crap that we got to deal with. But
but I mean, look, I met you guys in coronavirus. Otherwise, I never would have met you.
I was just gonna say that as well, right? You think about it. It's would we have been in this setting? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I have friends all over the world now that I didn't have before, that I could call on if I need to talk to, or I need advice or a connection, or that's a big silver lining because it connected a lot of people throughout the country. And I think even in the future, there's going to be a lot of Zoom meetings, because there's things you can't attend from New Jersey if you're in Toronto or Florida or Vancouver or whatever, London. I've one on Fridays in London. That's definitely a silver lining. But,
and it kind of challenges our, we were talking about beforehand that people are saying, well, I don't want to work like this way anymore. Beforehand, it's, that book, going back to the book that I'm reading, The Extraordinary Mind, he brought up a really good point. When you're little, you always ask your parents why, and they give you the answer because I said so.
Right, because I've done that. That's not good. I've done it.
I got that so often when I was little.
Because I'm your dad. I don't have to be right all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I do.
That's
I'm
the
not
way
sure.
it is.
Yeah. Because I didn't have an answer. But I think you're right. I think that people, I mean, I don't know. I think we just kind of don't think we can change, or we're just, we're afraid to do it, like you said.
Scary.
And then you're forced to now. I mean, it's not, now it's less scary to make a change than it was.
It's like you said, it's forced, right? So you think about some of the things that have happened over the past weeks and months. They were going to happen. Most of the things were going to happen anyway. It just would have taken maybe 20 to 25 years, to happen, where it's now happened out of necessity in the past couple months, in the past couple weeks, because, kind of out of necessity. And I think also too, is that when it's now a choice versus like, I have to do this. I think when it's a choice, now it's a matter of, all the things that come up, to your point, you said all the record of businesses that were open. I think that a lot of times, people get stuck in this mindset of, they won't say that it's possible. They'll say all the things that will prevent them from doing what they want to do. And therefore it's almost now they made up their mind that they're not going to do it, because and anything you look at, in life, you can make 101 reasons why you can't do something. But I think that now it's like, this has been a pivot point. Mitch, like you said, I don't know if you're going back to a job, or how long you're going to be laid off, or whatever the case is. Now it basically gives you inspiration, but like, listen, I have nothing else to fall back on. I'm going to go and start a business. Right. So, and I think if it wasn't for this, people wouldn't be in that position to do that, so, and I think too, that's another thing that's come out from this, is that it's forced people to have to act and make a decision, on a lot of things.
I hope that they take a chance to do it the right way and increase their chance of success, and work with a coach and find a mentor and
exactly
write things down,
write things down, have a plan. Remember, we were talking about a few weeks ago, having a business plan. How many people don't have one, right? And put it in writing, and not just looking at it the first time, but it's an ongoing living, breathing document, just like a financial plan. In my world, it's the same thing. It's basically, it's a living, breathing document that you're changing over and over again.
Because your life's always changing. You have to adjust the plan and figure it out.
But it also keeps you accountable.
Right.
Absolutely.
Very much so. Because nobody likes looking in the mirror and say, okay, well, oh my God, I'm not making any money in this business. I think a lot of people who were business owners before the pandemic and their cash flow stopped, it was like the smoke cleared, and they go, oh my goodness, we were making no money with this business, and they got to make pivot or readjust. Or were you the one who told me you don't like pivot? Because if you pivot far enough, you end up back where you started. Somebody told me that.
No, I love the word pivot, but I know that some people have an aversion to it.
Well, it's true. If you pivot all the way around, you're back where you started. So whoever told me that was a good, but definitely it's a lot of transformation. I guess you believe in the secret, huh? You like that, believing in positive mindset or whatever.
Sort of. I mean, I'm wired. I'm just wired that way. I've always been a bundle of energy. I mean, obviously I don't remember when I was tiny, but that's just always been, I've always been like that. Right. But yeah, it's, going back to what I mentioned beforehand, your reticular activating system, it just kind of like you attract what you think about, and it just happens naturally. So, I mean, whatever anybody wants to believe, if you break it down to the science, when you get highlighted, when you're aware of something, and I talked to someone about this the other day, when you first started courting someone, for example, you knew what car they drove and you saw that car everywhere, or things like that. We are just programmed to look for, our mind is so beautiful that it tries to make things happen for us. But also, what you were talking about beforehand, Michael, that when a lot of people have been forced, we have that, we always have those like 1,001 reasons why something won't work, because it's just how we've been programmed as humans to survive. We come out of the womb and we're not necessarily, we don't pop out of the womb like horses and can stand. We're just defenseless, and we need to learn everything from the world, and it's all about survival, but it's not necessarily survival anymore.
Right. Yeah. Well, because we're raised and our parents are like, don't, be careful. Don't touch that. Don't, watch where you go. Watch where you step. Look, look both ways before you cross the street, that type of stuff. But I don't know, what kind of things have you seen during this time where I know you coach and you talk to a lot of people and you interview them and they work with you. What kind of challenges have you seen, and what kind of advice have you given people, in terms of, because people hopefully are listening to this at some point. So.
I think that the main thing that I've been seeing is people questioning the way they do things, and also realizing that it's okay to question the way you're doing things, and also taking the time for yourself to figure out what you want to do, and that it's okay to do that. And one of the things that I will add is oftentimes and I don't know if it's necessarily on point to what you were asking, but we oftentimes think that these things that we're seeking outside of ourselves are going to make ourselves happy. But what we need to remember is that we ourselves are whole. All these other things just add, they don't subtract from you. So when you come from a place of realizing that you're whole, it just changes your perspective. So to kind of, go back to your question, it's been a really powerful time to really see what you're capable of. And I think that's what we're learning.
Do you think though that when it comes to, coaches and mentors and writing down your goals, it's still like an 80-20 rule? Like only 20% of the people really seek it out because they're the ones that want to better themselves. The 80% probably need it more than the 20%. And out of those 20%, only another 20 really, get to the next, really invest in themselves, really coach with somebody. Because I know the most successful people have coaches. It's not like the unsuccessful people have coaches and the successful people don't need coaches. That's not true. It's the other way around. So what do you think about that?
I think that we all have our own journey. And so I'm not going to tell someone that their journey is different. We all have our own superpowers. And it took me a while to get to a point to hire a coach. And I don't know if it's something that I'm also noticing with attorneys, and I'm sure you could speak to it. We as attorneys, we feel the need to not allow anybody see any chinks in our armor. And sometimes asking for help seems like you have a chink in your armor instead of seeing that as like your advisory board, so to say. So really, it's just someone's journey. And it starts with things like the Inspired Attorney, and your podcast, for example, the Accidental Entrepreneur, these things that we're listening to that give us advice, open our minds to different perspectives. And that will, activate yourself on another journey to hearing something else and exploring those topics. And then eventually someone will cross your path that will be the right fit for you. And then it's just a matter of having the courage to say yes, and also being slightly realistic about what you can do, but also having the faith that there are miracles out there, if that makes any sense.
I think that makes a lot of sense. That's just believing that it's possible. Just because it didn't happen today or you ran into a problem, doesn't mean you should give up. Maybe you got to adjust things. I'm not saying you should just keep going blindly down a dark alley, but I think that's, you got to kind of figure it out. But I think that's good advice, because I think there's, and I guess you kind of answered my next question, was because there's so many people out there that are offering their knowledge, right? Coaching, motivating, mentoring, whatever it is, business advising. I mean, you can put it all into a very, very large pot of people that advise people in some capacity, whether it's health, wellness, business, motivation, whatever it is. It's very hard to kind of, like you said, find your right fit. Like I have so many friends, including you, that work in the business development, personal development, mindset area. And then I have others that kind of overlap a little bit, and it's hard. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know where to start when I need advice from somebody. Whoever I'm talking to that day, I just pick and choose. And I don't know. I don't have a coach right now. I coached, I have mentors, things like that. I think a lot of people don't know where to start. It's just so much, they don't know. So like, how does somebody kind of boil that down and say, oh, this person's the right person to me. This person I should interview. And what should I say? How do I know if I should change who I'm talking to? That type of stuff.
I think it's just like anything. I look at it like when you're making new friends. For example, you just vibe with that person, and you say to yourself,
like there's chemistry, kind of.
Yeah, there's chemistry, and you know that your money babies are going to be taken care of with that person. It's someone that you vibe with, that they're going to take you to that next level, and that they actually really care about you, and it's not about their own mission. Because at the end of the day, when I work with people, it's not about me. It's about their journey, and I'm kind of helping them hold their flashlight to help them see the corners that they're not seeing. And I'm just grateful to be along the journey with them and help them be a guide, because we all have guides in our lives. It's just kind of like a gut feeling,
Yeah.
For example, I needed advice on something yesterday, and the first person that popped into my head, I called.
Okay. Well, because your mind matched it up for some reason, right?
Our guts know,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure it's kind of like, when you're taking it. I used to have a professor in law school. She was amazing. And we'd be she'd give us a pop quiz, and she would give us extra time, and she would say, start changing all your correct answers for wrong answers, because your initial gut instinct is the right thing.
Right.
Usually
You
when you go
overthink
back
it.
to
And
the
then,
question, it's
we do that
wrong.
all the time. Yeah. 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 What were you saying?
No, I
Mike?
think that's a great point. And it's the best way to look at it, because it's a matter of knowing that, okay, this is my thought. I'm going to go through my whole day, but having that person to just bounce it off of, right? And just getting that different perspective. And I think too, you're even getting perspective just by talking about it, as well, so I think that, that's, it's a great point. And I think too, is that I actually see exactly what you're saying, is that it's not just for someone that is struggling. I think it's even too more so people that are succeeding, is that, as they're succeeding and they're growing, having that, kind of conversation, the sounding board, I think is key, and it's critical. It's not a matter of saying, I don't know, it's just a matter of saying, it's almost like going back to like a company and saying, how many companies are out there that exist, and there's one person that's just not even talking about a decision that's being made before it's made, and they're just making it blindly on the fly, even though that they may be in a position to be able to make that decision. But are they getting any different perspectives? Is there a sounding board there that basically is saying, okay, before I make this decision, let's talk about it, right? Let's get some different perspectives on it and look at it from different angles. And I think that is just invaluable, right? In regards to, making that decision and moving forward.
100%. That's why I have monthly strategy sessions with some of my clients, because you just have the check-in to talk about the things that you're talking about, get that perspective. There is a reason why companies always, when they test a product, they test the product on different people, because your perspective is one perspective.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's good advice. I'm just saying, I just hear a lot of noise. I mean, it's like Mike in your business too. I mean, everyone and their grandmother's a financial advisor. It's hard to break through the noise, because there's people that they don't do what you do, but they just told themselves that way. And people don't know the difference. They don't know the difference of me either as a lawyer. Well, what makes me different than some other business attorney?
Yep.
You know what I've noticed, and also the people that I've interviewed, it's really a matter of speaking to different people and not taking the first advice that you give. I mean, generally, like you have a gut feeling for things, but it's also kind of like going to a doctor. You want to get a second opinion and hear what somebody else says. And that's also one of the reasons why I created Let's Talk Finance, because the financial world for most people, and I think most attorneys, is like a foreign language. And it's an area where we don't even, when we're, like you were talking about, Mitch, when you're not sure about something, you get stuck and then you fall into procrastination mode. And we all suffer from it. And then you're in a place where you haven't moved, you haven't made any progress. So what I'm really learning is that I have to be willing to ask questions. And I also have to be willing to put myself in a position where I show that I don't know everything. And that is one of the hardest things to do, is to be like, listen, I don't know everything. Please tell me what you know. And if that person's not willing to have a conversation with you, then they're not the right person to work with.
Right. That's for sure. Yeah. I think that's an issue of security. I mean, a lot of people don't, we're secure people. So admitting that we don't know something is like, the people don't expect you to know everything.
No, exactly.
I have friends or colleagues that are lawyers. They're, they won't. I mean, that's the first thing. So, well, I don't practice in that area. Let me see if I can find you somebody who does, or else it just gets you in trouble anyway.
Yeah. Or let me look into it. Sometimes when we give someone an answer and we don't know, like, you always end up like with your foot in your mouth.
Exactly.
Right. Yep. Right. If you don't know if you're not sure of what you're saying, don't make it up on the fly.
No, exactly.
You'll find out you're wrong later, and then you got to backpedal.
Yeah, 100%, especially in this world where everything is recorded.
Yeah.
Right. Recorded. You can look it up. You can double check it. You can fact check it. You can do a Google search. Although half the times I get questions, I'm not sure why they just didn't do a Google search, but what'd you say?
They're asking you because sometimes, I mean, Google gives you their search results based on their algorithm, and they're asking you because they trust you. So it's an opportunity in it of itself. And then sometimes, it just really depends. Like, cause I definitely know those, like in my legal experience, sometimes people will ask you questions because they just don't feel like doing the work. So, I mean, you have both things, but what we were talking about beforehand, when you're not sure how to make a decision, back to writing it down, right? Putting pen to paper and just giving yourself a moment.
Work through it, right?
Yeah, to work through it and see while you're writing it down, is this really true, what I'm writing?
Yeah, no, that's
Question.
that's good advice for people that are dealing with situations like, is this really what's happening, or am I just reacting and having a panic attack and it's really not something I should be panicking about? I think a lot of people do that. They react, they don't think, they don't, and like I said before, 9 times out of 10, it goes away anyway, or it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, I have things happen all day long. I don't even tell my wife half of them because by 5 o'clock at night, they're usually resolved. I got a call over a bill, or I don't know, something was screwed up and I took care of it, as opposed to like calling back at 10 o'clock and 10 a.m. and saying, oh, did you pay this, or I got this and this isn't right. Just look into it. And then it's not anything. Like, you don't have to panic other people. People do that. They like to, what's the word? Project panic and their stress on other people.
Because it makes us feel good to not be alone in it.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, that comes down to coaching and mentoring. Then you got somebody to talk to.
Exactly.
Kind of a little therapeutic,
And the great thing is about, and I was listening because you guys know I love to listen to motivational content, and I don't know her name, but she was talking about, is this someone who is quite well known, and she lost her brother at a young age. And she was talking about how her parents put her in therapy. And the great thing about a therapist is that they don't know the people that you're talking about, and they have no judgments about any of this. So there is like such a freedom in talking to someone that doesn't know the background drama or like have an opinion about so-and-so or this thing. All they care about is you.
Right. Well, that comes down to chemistry, right? You want to have somebody who's you're comfortable enough to share things, because you can't give them good feedback or advice or guidance or anything if you don't really understand what they're going through, what their situation is.
Yeah. But the first step is admitting to yourself that something's off.
I guess sometimes we feel that things are off and we're not really paying attention to it.
No.
Till later on, you're like, no, I knew this 8 months ago, but I didn't pay attention. And you just think it's going to go away sometimes. Look, that happens in business all the time. Partnerships break up all the time in law. And a lot of it's because one of the people or both of them weren't paying attention to the fact that they just weren't like-minded. They didn't have the same goals. They want to develop their business the same. They worked in different areas. They worked differently.
Yeah.
So that's probably true in a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
It's something like that. It really is just a blessing, and we all know this. When those moments hit where we have that realization, sometimes we judge ourselves. We say, oh man, like, how could I let it go on this long? It's just part of your journey. By learning that in that moment, it's not going to happen to you again. And somebody else, when you're able to convey your knowledge to someone else, they're going to be able to leapfrog through something else. But it's also a matter of not forcing your knowledge onto people.
It works both ways, right?
Yeah. Sometimes, like, I know sometimes, like, when it comes to cooking, my sister would get so mad at me because I would say, listen, you need to chop the onion like this. And for me, the way she was chopping her onion wasn't necessarily efficient, but my mom would say she needs to do it in her own way. Like, you can't force her to do it in a certain way just because it's right or you think it's right. Let people go through their own journey and let them come to you when they need help.
It's a great point. And I think too, is that, part of it too is that, like you said, it's looking at it as a blessing, right? It's a matter of saying, well, you learn from those situations. I think it's just the other thing is you never stop learning from these overall situations. And people are going to take that advice. There are people that are looking for it, and then ultimately not forcing it, right? Because people may not be in the mindset to even take it in, right? And basically, listen to that overall advice as well. And I think also too, it's a matter of, you said it a little earlier, is writing it down, because now you're taking things in a different way versus just having it in your head. You're writing it down. Now it's like, okay, am I looking at the right thing here? Am I looking at the same thing? And especially too, going back to like partnerships, right? Are we all following the same mission? At the end of the day, do we all have the same passion of what direction we want to go in?
Really...
And if you don't, it's okay.
Right.
It's not like
it's, you got to figure out what that is, and if it's the same. I've been guilty of it too.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
Yeah.
But in that example, also being okay with back to your whole, like, it's okay if it doesn't work out with that
Right.
person. There is another opportunity there, but sometimes things just feel so safe to us because they're familiar. We don't want to challenge the status quo until, like, for example, Corona breaks the status quo for us and we're forced to do it. But wouldn't it be nice to be a little more proactive in our lives?
It's funny. Coronavirus almost gave you permission to make a change, because there's a lot of people don't make change because they're afraid. They're afraid of admitting that they failed or that it didn't work out and maybe it's their fault and, whatever. They're embarrassed. And how do you go tell people that you're no longer there and you were just joined this other company 4 years ago? And that, all those things go through your head. And I guess, ironically, you can blame it on coronavirus. You can blame it on like, well, my company's cutting back and I decided I didn't want to do this or whatever. Or I'm afraid to go to the office. I don't know what your issue is, but yeah, I think it's almost like a permission slip. It's a little weird, but.
And the one thing is that when we live in such a world of distraction, where sometimes you have the opportunity to focus on something that would help you, or sometimes you've had a long day and instead of actually confronting what's happening, you just put on the TV and shut off. And I'm not saying or scroll through Instagram or do whatever, and we're all guilty of it. But there comes a time where you really need to lock yourself in to these moments of reflection for yourself and challenge yourself to go through basically that messy closet that you have and organize it, so you can move forward, and then you can enjoy your Instagram or YouTube cat videos or whatever it is that makes you happy. But we waste so much time doing things like that could be spent doing things that actually will make you happy in the end. Kind of like going to the gym will give you a more vital body. Like the work is worth the effort.
And I think if you write things down, it like relieves you of having to remember everything. Like get all that garbage out of your head. And then you might find a gem or two here and there as you jot things down.
And when you go back and you look at stuff too, you can also see how far you've grown, reward yourself for that, or also be reminded of different ideas. I have so many notebooks for different purposes. I have my little library of things. I have notebooks for ideas, notebooks for conversations that I have with people. And I flip through them to see the different points that were made.
Yeah, I do this. I do mine electronically, but I have like an electronic pad and I have different notebooks in there. And I hate having all those yellow pads all over the place. And it's the same thing, but you got to figure a system that works for you. That's another thing that people have to kind of do. And I think nowadays people have been learning how to do virtual things and how to get virtual help and how to, do things more, not paperless, but you know what I mean? Technology driven, automated type of things. So you can do things and not look. That's why subscription services. I just read a book called The Automatic Customer. It's all about building a subscription business in any industry. And we like to do things that are automatic, that we can do it and kind of focus on the things that, we want to, like the Greek and the Romans, except they had slaves. So we don't have slaves, but we have automated systems. So we can spend time thinking and being thoughtful about and purposeful about what we want to do. So
yeah, but it's also taking the moment to actually do it, because I know I'm a perfectionist at heart, and sometimes I would stop myself from even making the first step, because then I would say, with the notebooks, for example, it's a system that evolves through trial and error, and maybe you're doing this right now. But allow yourself to reflect and say, is this something that really works for me? And start evolving as you grow. Like you're not married to that one system.
Right.
You can evolve. You guys can have like a rehash of where you stand in your relationship.
Yeah.
Changes.
No, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of people do that. That's their reason for not going forward. It's just got to be perfect in their mind, and just do it. Yeah. By the way, it's never going to be perfect. Your first time, no way.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad, probably. It's going to probably be bad.
Yeah. Mitch and I talked about that on the podcast, about who was that one person you mentioned where he actually was able to succeed that much more because he knew that the first time he did something was a learning lesson. So he came at it from a completely different perspective.
Yeah. Who was that? Well, we were talking about Brene Brown because she talks about your first frigging time or whatever. But who was the person who? Oh, Yeah, there was a young guy on my podcast, and he was raising money. He'd been down and up and all kinds of things, so he's raising money for this company. And he went to pitch contests and angel investor panels, and he said, "I know I'm not going to get any money for like the first 10 times. I'm just going to do everything to break this and figure it out and do better." He ended up raising $1 million for crowdfunding it ultimately. But that was his mindset. So he wasn't like down every time he didn't get anything. He expected it.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
oh, yeah, exactly. He was like, oh, that's fine. I expected to not get any money or.
Because ultimately to that point is he has to go through that experience to kind of understand exactly what areas it needs to focus on, maybe a little bit different next
Correct.
time,
He
or
was
things
learning.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Things that maybe you shouldn't have said or you should have said.
Right.
And some of those situations too, you really can't even plan for it because you don't even know what you might get in return, right? What questions you might get. Or,
yeah, that's the thing. You don't know anymore. Like, what are the kind of things they're going to ask? What do they like? What are they looking for? And he did it so many times that he got good at it.
I mean, I guess you could think of potential, reactions.
You'd probably be wrong
questions
9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, but it's like you don't really, you'll never really know, but through that experience is like, okay, I know the last 3 that I did, I got these questions that were off the wall, these ones I was expecting to get, and and this is kind of how. And then from that experience, now you're thinking a little bit differently. Okay, now I'm gonna look at this a little bit differently. If I get a question that's like this, I kind of know where I'll kind of go with it, or what information more I need to know, or how I should present it differently as well, right? Because I know this question is going to come up, so why not just present with it, because the question's kind of already there. So I think a lot of it kind of comes from just going through the steps and understanding that no matter when you start, you're going to learn from that experience too. So I think that's a great way. It's a great perspective.
Yeah, because we put so much pressure on ourselves to to get it right, because that's how we're taught.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to get 100 on the test. You're going to do probably not the first time. So I mean, that's why you take the entrance exams more than once.
Yeah.
Right. You don't take it once and then just apply to medical school or law school, whatever. You take a course, you learn the thing. First time you take it, you suck. And that's good. The case is not surprising.
Yeah.
Friend you don't like who gets a perfect
also
score,
having
that's not you.
Yeah. And you need to have the humility, because I think we've all been there. Like, I remember when I first came out of law school, and I'm sure my employer, who hired me at the time, would laugh, because I came out of there and I'm like, I just got a law degree. I have 2 business degrees.
Oh yeah, you're going to take on the world. Right.
And they're like, you got to do these secretarial tasks.
Right. Exactly. You don't know anything. And here you go. Right. Yeah. But there's a difference though between having expectations and not expecting it to be a learning experience versus being devastated and really disappointed at the result of not doing well. And it's mindset, like you said, right? It's totally mindset. If you go in knowing that, I mean, maybe you'll do better than you expected, but if you go in as a learning experience, I want to learn as much about this as I possibly can, so I can do better the next time. Then first, it's certainly better from a stress level, right? And your whole perspective and your whole mindset's different, because you go into it with more confidence, ironically, right?
Yep.
Because you're not having it doesn't lower your confidence. It actually raises your confidence, because then when you didn't do well or you screwed something up, you're like, well, yeah, I kind of expected that to happen. But if you went in thinking, I'm going to, like you said, you come out of school, you're all full of piss and vinegar, and you're just like, I have these degrees and I'm so smart. And then the rest of the world doesn't really care. I mean, it'll get you in the door. It'll start the conversation and be like, okay, Sharon, now that you've started, your desk's over there and the broom's in the corner, and make sure you turn the lights out at the end of the day. You're like, what do you mean? I have 3 degrees. And they're like, fantastic. You still got to sweep the floors at the end of the day. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's hard when you're 21, 24, 20. It's really hard. My son's 25, 20, and he's starting to take my advice more. But when he was 16, forget about it. You don't know, Dad, the world's a different place. You don't understand. I go, I understand a lot more than you think I understand. And then after a while, he would say, yeah, Dad, you were right. That type of thing. I said, it's all right. When I was 16, I thought I knew everything too.
Yeah.
And then you learn that you don't, and that's okay. And you grow. And there's so many things I don't know now, but there's so many other things I do know. Can't help my kids with math. My wife's a math tutor and a high school math teacher. Can't help. Dad, but you're a lawyer. How come you can't help me with this? I go, because that's not what I do. Very little math involved in, certainly not trigonometry and calculus involved in practicing law. you know? Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it. That's okay. I don't need to be smart for my kids, you know?
Yeah. I think also, I mean, it's one of the things that it's one of my journeys is constantly learning how to communicate things better so that people hear the message, because it's all about how the message is conveyed. And especially in those situations, I think to myself just now, like, how could I have communicated to myself at that age with all the expectations that I had in a way that I would have understood how to take the opportunity and see it differently.
Right. Because you didn't have the mindset of in my case, a 53-year-old person. You weren't able to receive the information. You know, we get frustrated as parents. We say, hey, how come he doesn't understand me? Well, honey, because he thinks like a 16-year-old. He doesn't think like he's 50. Yeah. It's that's experience. And I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been a good conversation. So I appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
It'll get posted after hours. I think 6:00. We do it tomorrow night. So as soon as I can do it. And I'm sorry you couldn't see Trevor and Jeff, but you'll have to see them next time.
Yep.
And enjoy sunny Florida.
Thank you. I'll be sending sunshine everyone's way.
I appreciate it.
And positive vibes always.
All right. So everybody say goodbye, but stay on the mic. Stay online. I'm Mitch Beinhacker. This has been Business Talk After Hours. I'm a business attorney in Clark, New Jersey. Mike, say goodnight.
Michael Manella. Great seeing everyone. Sharon, thank you so much for joining. It's been a great conversation. Took a lot away out of this conversation. So thank you.
Okay. Everybody say goodbye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Bye.